power shotting. Kind of sounds like an oxymoron, doesn't it? Well, sit back, relax, and we're going to go in depth into this great technique that could help you put a lot more fish in your boat on those tough days here on this all new episode of Co-Angler's Corner. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Frugal Muse Studios for this new episode of Co-Angler's Corner, brought to you by Olson Home Theater. I'm Russell Olson. Today on the show, I want to go over a technique that, that really doesn't sound like it should go together, power shotting. You think of drop shot as more of a finesse technique, and you got your power techniques that you think of, like your crankbaits, spinner baits, chatterbaits, that type of thing. Well, this technique, I actually learned about this technique from Mark Zona at the Wisconsin Fishing Expo this year. He put on a great seminar about that, and we're going to go into some of the details of what he talked about, and some things I think as well. So without any further ado here, let's get started. First thing I want to talk about is some of the places that you could fish this. You could really fish this anywhere that you would normally fish a drop shot, first of all. I probably wouldn't use this technique super shallow. You probably could, but and I'll kind of get into that a little bit later as far as some of the tackle and that you would use. One of the things that he specifically mentioned that this could be advantage of is fishing under docks, because probably because you can keep the bait where you want it to be longer, and there's reasons for that. The next thing we'll go over is some of the tackle. You can use spinning gear if you really prefer, but for what we're going to be using, I would really suggest using a bait caster, because we are going to be using just a little bit heavier equipment for this. I would say usually say a longer rod, like 7 foot. I say you use whatever you're comfortable with. With this, you probably would want to at least try a longer rod first, maybe 7.5 foot. I'd say medium action. One of the keys though is to have a braid backing to your line. So pretty much reel your reel up with braid. But what he talked about is having a leader on it, a fluorocarbon leader. The reason for the backing of braid is the sensitivity. Just one more, braid is really sensitive, and it's just one more thing in your arsenal to help you feel those bites. Because especially on a drop shot, those bites can be super light. I mean, there's been times when on a normal drop shot that I've just had a fish on just start to feel weight on it, start to feel like get extra tense, or if he took it, get extra so basically something not feeling right. Like I said, didn't even know I had him on. But as far as the leader from your main line, about 10 to 15 feet for the leader, going from your starting from your braid to basically from there to the hook. It just less, the fluorocarbon is basically the fish can't see it, so that's the big thing we have in that long leader. Plus fluorocarbon is sensitive too. But that's a few of the reasons for that long leader. Now, now, let me back up just a second. If you're not familiar with what a drop shot is, it's basically you got your line, and in case of what I was talking about here, basically a leader, or you could use all fluorocarbon. On my normally, if I'm doing this, just a normal drop shot with a spinning reel, I'm just straight fluorocarbon. But you got your line goes to your hook, and I'm a big fan of the robo worms for using on my drop shots. There's many baits that you could use, and we can go in that in a different episode. But then from your hook and your bait, you got a length of line, and that goes into another thing to get into in a second. But then at the end of that line is a weight. Now, in a normal drop shot, that's a real light weight. That's going to be a little bit different here, and I'll get into that in a few moments also. But one of the things that Mark Zona talked about was the length of that line from your hook or to your weight. In warmer water, you want that distance to be a little bit more. You can go up to 3 feet. Me personally, I don't have a lot of confidence in it being that long. Plus, it starts to get a little bit harder to cast when it's that long. I usually like to run mine no more than 2 feet. I'll go longer if I absolutely have to, but I prefer no longer than 2 feet. Like I said, things just get a little harder to manage when that length is more than that, at least for me anyway. I would say on average, whether it be a power shot or a normal drop shot, 12 to 18 inches is my normal. But if it's like really, really cold, if it's super cold, you even shorten that up even more. Maybe even down to all the way down to like 6 inches, maybe even an inch or two less than that. So let if you're going to be power shotting, let the water temperature determine how long a leader that you're going to have. Well, not only that, plus at what point you feel comfortable. Like I said, for me, not much more than 2 feet is my personal preference. As far as that weight, as I mentioned, we're talking a little bit, heavier weight. A half ounce to possibly 3/4 ounce. I didn't get a chance to use it, but I had it tied on for my last tournament launching on Winneconne. I didn't know if my partner would go to Bago or not, but if we're going to Bago, I would have been using that. I actually had like an ounce and a half tied on mine personally. Yeah, it's unfortunate I didn't get a chance to use. I was really hoping to get a chance to use that, up there at that tournament. But my partner ended up going north to the river, and that that didn't wasn't quite conditions I would be hoping for that. But one of the main reasons for me, especially being a co-angler, that I can see that being useful, is the fact, especially with your boater, a lot of boaters just constantly moving, that heavy weight gets down fast, especially if you're fishing Bago or fishing Big Green, somewhere like that gets deep, and with your boater moving, that gets down fast, so you can get down quicker. Actually, probably keep it down there just a little bit longer before bringing it in and casting it out again. That's kind of why this is a power technique, because you're not spending a lot of time down there. You're working the bait. I would say work the bait. You almost don't even have to move your hand. The way your hand naturally moves, and a little twitch like that'll more than do the job. But you're not leaving that down there very long. You're going again, reeling it in. working a little bit. Say your boater gets to the point where the bait's almost behind you. Reel it in. I'd say pitch it out. Try it, because that's probably the best way you're gonna get it out there and not have it go kerplunk when it lands the water. Just kind of try to cast it far but low. But like I said, try your best not to let it land on the water that hard. You, especially in clear water situation, even if it's deep, you still don't want that big old loud kerplunk. You'll scare the fish away, and that'll completely defeat the purpose of what you're doing here. But as I was listening to this seminar, kind of thinking about that, I'm like, this could be really advantageous for a go angler, especially on a tough day. When you need a finesse technique to get these fish to bite, and sometimes it's kind of hard to work a drop shot or work something real finesse when your boater's just, especially if he's got that trolling motor on high and you're just moving. It's like it can be frustrating, and I can see how this technique could be really, really helpful with that. Like I said, as far as the baits go, I'm a big one on robo worms. I mean, there's all kinds of baits that you could use for drop shotting, but those I just feel like a nice thin worm, 4 or 5 inches. Sometimes if you need to go down further than that, maybe even use like something that was designed for a Ned rig if you had to. But I just feel like the robo worm style baits really give me the best luck as far as drop shotting, because they're really thin, really finessey, that type of thing. What else do I need to go over here? We already talked about where you can throw this. One thing he mentioned is obviously if you're co-angler, you're not controlling where he's going, but one of the things he mentioned, especially in the early spring, when the panfish are on, look for where a lot of panfishermen are, because those bass are not that far away usually. So that's one thing that he mentioned. Mentioned there. So as far as when you're casting out and when you work it, basically you don't want your line too tight. You keep it somewhat taut, but not, I don't want to say this, not basically not too tight. Just a little bit of looseness in that line, because you also want to be able to, if that fish hits your bait, you want to see that line jump. So that's, I'm thinking that's probably one of the reasons that was mentioned to not fish this, too tight. Things here. So another thing that was mentioned, he also talked about a knot called the FG knot. It looks like a really strong knot. It looks like it takes a little bit of time to tie, but I guess it's a really strong knot. And this knot I'm talking about would be used to connect your braid to your fluorocarbon, to your leader down to your hook. I guess a lot of people use a blood knot. I use a blood knot. It's worked fine for me. I've been meaning to practice the FG knot. I just haven't had the opportunity with everything I've got going on. I'll try to find a site with a good description with some pictures of that FG knot, and I'll put the link in the description. Well, that's what we have today on power shotting. I hope what I've talked about today helps you out a little bit. If you have any suggestions or any questions about power shotting, feel free to leave them in the comments below. And as I see them, I'll try to address them as soon as I can. I want to thank you for watching, and I wish you good luck on the back of the boat this season.